Welcome back, thrill seekers. We dive deeper into the luxurious yet sinister world of Horus. In this episode, the stakes are higher, the secrets are darker, and the desires are stronger. Prepare to be swept up in a whirlwind of emotions as alliances change and the boundaries between master and slave blur even further. There will be shocking revelations and unexpected turns of events that will leave you on the edge of your seat as you desperately try to uncover the truth. Prepare for a roller coaster ride of passion, power, and betrayal. This is a story you won't want to miss. The Life I Dreamed of. Chapter 3. She took a stand. Not enough, but the moment wasn't right. I moved closer and lifted her face by her chin so she could look at me. Relax, Denise. It's just a game. You're too tense. Let yourself go. She only seemed to get more agitated. Take a deep breath and tell me what's bothering you. Forget about the slave for a while. She took a couple breaths, and I could see the tension had faded a little. Did you get even for Raoul buying Amanda? She asked timidly. I laughed. Not at all. You're one of the most beautiful girls here. I was glad for the opportunity to buy you. She looked at me angrily. No, I'm not. I'm the easiest girl you bought today. You could have bought Wendy if you wanted, or Sheila. I was just trash at the end. I gave her a hard look. Stand up. She slowly stood up a few centimeters away from me. Now turn around slowly. She turned her head, watching me look at her. Sit down, I ordered her. She sat in front of me with her legs folded sideways. I pulled myself closer to her. You're beautiful. I've always thought so. She sighed, pulling away from me. Why did you say that? I see your other girls, like Erica and Alice. I don't have anything they have. I never thought you could be so mean, Jack. Stop being ridiculous, I snapped back. You're beautiful. The fact that you're standing in front of me dressed like that is driving me crazy. She shrank back. This is crazy, Jack. We're both married. Am I really supposed to just forget about all of this? I'd really like that, I told her, smiling. I stood up and took her hand. Troy, I'll be back in a minute. I hope you won't mind if I leave you with Kajira. Take your time getting back, he laughed. He seemed to be a pretty demanding master. I could certainly understand Kayla, but Erica? She had certainly adapted well to her role as a slave girl. I wondered about her outfit. Was there something about her that I didn't know? Denise seemed to be in shock. I took her hand in mine. Let's go see what's going on at the rest of the party. As I suspected, a few minutes of wandering around, and we saw all sorts of craziness. Everyone seemed to have their own ideas about how to treat their slaves. In a corner, I saw a master being fed. I wondered which one was really the master. Tasha was dancing for her master and a few others, and their slave girls seemed to be waiting their turn, standing at their master's side. I was tempted to stay and watch. At least half of the party was nowhere to be seen. I guess the privacy tents were being used for their intended purpose. Probably most of the rooms too. At that moment, Beth came running up to me. I came to let you know, she said sweetly. Go on, please. She's on the porch. No big deal. At first, they seemed happy to be seen walking with her. Now she's explaining all of Gore's positions to them, and they take turns making her do them. Her outfit doesn't help, of course. She looked so cute bouncing on her toes while she explained everything. Pretty crazy party, huh? She said with a smile. It even makes me want to be a guest instead of working. I reached out and grasped the handle. The girl looked at me in surprise. You're too good to be completely hidden. She breathed softly. I adjusted something in her costume. That's much better. Move carefully, or some of these guys will have a heart attack. Yes, master, she replied. I pulled out a gold 20 and gave it to her. Thanks for the report. I'll see you in an hour. I took a stunned Denise's hand and walked over to the window overlooking the back porch. I opened the blinds to see better, and we saw Amanda. Men were walking around her. A slave's caress, I explained. Doesn't it bother you? Asked Denise, leaning against me. More than she should. But like all the women here, she can stop it at any time. She won't even have to take off her collar. Do you think Raoul will make her do anything if she asks him to stop? I asked. She hesitated longer than I'd hoped. Probably not, she admitted. Doesn't it embarrass you that he's with her? I asked. A little, but not as much as I thought it would be. I hugged her and walked around to where Jean was dancing. I enjoyed the view. And that's what happens out in the open. Who knows what goes on in these tents or anywhere else in the house? I reminded her. Compared to what's going on elsewhere, I'd say Raoul is remarkably restrained. Back in the study, I could see that Troy was getting a high from the evening. I walked over to the lone lit candle and blew it out, leaving us in darkness, only the stray light from the hallway and windows illuminating our path. I sat down on the cushions in the other corner. I put my arms around Denise. It's one big fantasy. Everyone's pushing the boundaries. Is that so bad? She settled down and I felt warm. She leaned against me. Why me, Jack? You have 5 other girls. Erica would be doing this for you right now if I wasn't here, wouldn't she? They'd both like to, I told her quietly. Why me? I've always wanted to acquire you. Now you are mine. It's that simple. I turned her face toward me and kissed her. When we were done, she lowered her head. Why are you explaining all this to me? Why don't you just order me to do something? She asked, fidgeting nervously. On the mountain, we have many types of slaves. White silk slaves, red silk slaves, yellow silk, rare black silks, gray silks. Today, I allow my slave girls to choose their own color of silk. If you choose gray, you will not be molested. I hope you choose red. Amanda wears brown, she muttered. She's the new prisoner. Terry in white. Only because it suits her. When Amanda and I take her home tonight, I assure you she will no longer be white silk. I still don't get it, Jack. You have Amanda, and it looks like you have Terry. All the men are jealous of you. We're all jealous of your relationship. Why are you doing this? She nodded sideways. I feel like chopped beef compared to the ribs you spend every night with. Things aren't always what they seem, are they? Wouldn't it shock you to know that our marriage has been very shaky? I may be there for her every night, but I'm lucky enough to spend a good few evenings with her a few times a year. She looked surprised. You too? I nodded solemnly. Until a couple nights ago, I had the most boring life in this building. She laughed softly and sadly. I doubt it. Things are blooming at our house too. It's been over 3 months. I find that hard to believe, Denise. Is that harder to believe than Amanda being touched once a year? She asked. She had me hooked. Or is Bob leaving Terry? I added. I wonder what's wrong with all of us. I shook my head. Since we're sharing secrets, I'll come clean. Our problem, at least for me, has been diversity. Variety? Are you looking for something different when you have her? A slight irritation sounded in her voice. I'm looking for something different in her. For almost 10 years, she's been the most boring mistress imaginable. And she's only put up with me, almost never responding. I shook my head. God, I must be drunk to share this with you. She looked at me warmly. I'm sorry, Jack, and I promise it will stay between us. I laughed. It's not all bad. When Terry decided to join us at the party and they practiced being slaves, things got better in our house. Last night with my wife turned out to be the best night we've had together in our entire time together. Having Terry by our side made it even more exciting. She even participated a little bit, and that only seemed to drive Amanda crazier. I think we had a breakthrough, and that's why I tried to buy her out, because things can still be a little shaky. I think that explains Terry's attentive behavior, she said. But someone's husband was determined to stop me. She frowned. Not my idea. Trust me, the last girl I wanted him to buy was Amanda. I shook my head. She's exploring a new side of herself. Raoul and John may have picked the perfect time to buy her. Having said that, I realized that it probably wasn't what she wanted to hear. Denise didn't seem to take offense. I don't know what's wrong with our house. I don't. It's been 3 years now. I don't deny him anything. I try to be open with him, but he's withdrawn. Once every 6 months he shows amorous feelings, and that's usually good, but I know he's not happy with me. I just don't know why. There was so much sadness in her voice that she was ready to cry. She felt warm in my arms. I wish I could say I had an answer, but apparently I'm not the one to ask. I will say, though, that last night was the first time Amanda and I talked about a lot of things for the first time in a while that never came out. It was great. She nodded. We don't talk. Not very much. Hell, I don't think I've had a conversation with him in years. that borders on what I'm sharing with you? I leaned over and kissed her. You know I'm really crazy about you, for years now. She grinned and nodded shyly. I know you like me, and I really appreciate it. You make me feel good, attractive. I still don't know why exactly, but I'm not complaining. I like you too, Jack. A lot. She kissed my palm. I'm glad you bought me. You're attractive, beautiful. She kissed me. It was different. So, are you ready to choose your silk color, beautiful Kajira? I asked softly. She sat at my side, but then turned and leaned against me. If I choose red? She asked coquettishly. I did something. What do you think? Her eyes were fixed on mine. I can't believe I'm doing this, she whispered. Unfortunately, I also had to cut some of this text here because of YouTube, so I'll remind you again about the free trial of all stories, including this one, on our Patreon. What silks will you wear, beautiful Kajira? Choose for me, she said softly. Master. I laughed softly. I have chosen the color red for you. Will you accept me as your master, Denise? She leaned forward and kissed me. Denise is Master's red silk slave. She hugged me tightly. Thank you, Master, for letting that girl be with you. She pulled away, blushing. And for everything. You do realize that I'm not your only master, don't you, little slave? She nodded cautiously. I'm free to give you to anyone I choose, since you're wearing the color red. Yes, Master, Denise understands. I will not inherit you like a cheap tavern slave, but Master Troy is from Horus, and if he wishes, I will give you to him. I felt her flinch for a moment. Then she rose and kissed me again. Anything Master wishes. I only hope Master will not be displeased with this girl. I laughed. No, not displeased. Just the opposite. I should have stopped you, but it's too soon for that. I kissed her again. Now go to Master Troy and tell him you are red silk. She looked nervous. I pulled her closer. You have freed yourself for the night, beautiful slave. The decision is no longer yours. I squeezed her in an embrace. What happens in the mountain stays in the mountain. Feel free to know that what happens here is our secret, unless you decide otherwise. She nodded and gave me a quick kiss. I put my arms around her head and did it thoroughly. I heard voices from around the corner and soon saw my sweet Terry coming back in white silk with our 2 new girls in her arms. I stood up, adjusting my outfit, and hugged her. Let's see how you did. The room was too dark for a good view. I stepped out into the hallway where the light was better. I stood in front of Alice and looked at her. What a difference. All the fake dirt had been washed off her tanned skin. Her shirt was tied tightly at her side. Her uneven hair was pulled back into a ponytail, and her makeup gave her a young, very young look. And that was alarming. Terry was a diabolical genius. I walked around her. Her jean shorts were shortened and were in shreds. Amazing, I told her. I'm torn between protecting you and admiring you. I smiled at her. I should warn you that the urge to admire you is winning. She blushed. Thank you, Master. I turned to her sister, who, if it was only possible, looked even better. Marie was very thin, tall, without a single ounce of fat on her body. She had the figure of a dancer, which wasn't surprising since that was her profession. Stopping in front of her, I looked into her beautiful face. Her hair was loose, her eyes were painted dark, and her lips were unadorned with lipstick. Her facial features were sharp and angular. She looked like she'd been locked in a basement and starved. Lord, I whispered, you are incredible. Is something wrong, Master? She asked quietly. Wrong? I can't let anyone see you like that. It would cause a riot. I can barely contain myself. She chuckled. A master must not resist his desires. I took her and her sister by the hands and dragged her behind me into the study. Back in my favorite corner, I commanded Terry, Nada. She lowered herself into her seat. I looked around at the 2 new slave girls. This is the most common position of a Horus slave. Nadu. Now do the same. The girls took up positions on either side of Terry. Kajira, Terry, bring Erica. A few minutes later, she returned with Erica in her arms. What can I do for you, Master? For now, I want you to teach these 2 the position and manners of Horus. Yes, Master. Kajira is honored that Master has entrusted her. The girls seemed to be ready, much more so than Denise, and it was very nice to see that. I pulled Terry to me. Damn it, girl. What a change. You did good. She giggled. Thank you, Master. They clean up well, don't they? There's no way Greg deserves them. Is Master happy, Terry? She asked teasingly. Do you need to ask? I pulled her to me and spoke softly. Do you and Amanda have plans for us after the party? She climbed into my arms and rested her head on my shoulder. Mommy has Becky until Sunday night. I'm yours all weekend, Master. It was Amanda's idea. Delightful. Have you two come up with any other plans, Kajira? We're staying in the collar all day Saturday. The first girl deserved it. Ask for it. When we're home, don't be afraid to ask me to do something with Amanda. She giggled. Jesus, girl, where have you been all my life? Just 1 block away, and with the wrong landlord. Now that I'm in your life, I hope we can find a way to make it more than temporary, Master. I'd like that. You're driving me crazy, I admitted. I'm driving you crazy. I'm dying of desire. She kissed me again. But right now, I think Master has some new girls that need to be brought up to speed if we're going to get Kajira Mandy back. I sat down just as Yasmin, one of my vigilant maids, entered. She came up beside me. Your girl is in one of the privacy tents. She dances for 50 gold pieces. She is very good. I watched as she watched the new girls practicing their positions. Fiona is outside the tents collecting fees. She'll keep an eye on her. Dancing, huh? Things were moving fast. We didn't have much time to waste. Thanks, Jasmine. I appreciate it. She smiled at me. Anything else you want me to do while I'm here, Master? Anything else? These young girls were killing me. As much as I'd like to, I have my hands full right now, and Erica would kill me if I monopolized all your time. Aren't you going to at least adjust my suit? She asked with a mischievous grin. Thank you, Jasmine. She seemed pleased with the new image. If you feel like expanding your harem, look me up. God, she was feisty. Terry whispered in my ear. I'd like to see that. I laughed out loud. You're nothing but trouble, Kajira. Why did I think you were cute? Only the truth, Master, she replied cheekily. Erica seemed to be done with the girls, and they sat together talking. I sat down next to them. Ladies, now you have a choice to make. Denise has already made hers. I explained to all 3 of them the choice of silk color. I leave it up to you to choose your color, Erica hurriedly replied. Since I already wear black, black silk will be appropriate, she told me. I grinned. You know black silk is rare and very hard to earn. She reached out to me. Erica would like the Master to determine for himself if this girl is worthy of the color black. I pulled her to me and kissed her. The black ones for now. By the end of the night, we'll see if you've earned the right to keep them. She pulled away from me. I looked at the other 2. Any thoughts? Whatever you decide, I'll comply. Alice looked a little hesitant. What does white really mean? The bottom stays on you. The rest is fair game. She looked at her sister. Marie smiled. That girl would wear red silk for her master. Damn it. You realize I'm not your only master here? Troy is your master as well, and I may well trade either of you for another. If you trade me, then Gore's rules no longer apply? She asked cautiously. Your new master will have his own rules, I told her. She smiled. Then this girl will wear red silk, since she is a slave of the masters of Horus. Alice poked her. Marie. She laughed. I'm not married, not tied to some asshole. Let's have some fun. Wear red with me, Alice. She hesitated. I can't. He'll kill me. Fuck him. He bought that student. What do you think he's going to do? Marie didn't seem to think any more of Greg than the rest of us. Alice cast a glance at her sister. Let's not talk about that. She turned to me. Master, I'd like to wear white. I held out my hand, causing her to sigh. You understand what white means. I'll wear white for you today, Master. For both of your masters, I reminded her. She closed her eyes. That girl will wear white for the men of Gore. Erica laughed and hugged her. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight. She turned to me. Sir, if it pleases you, I have some colored silks. Perhaps you could tie them to our collars to remind us of our position? That would be nice, Kajira. Do it. She jumped up and scurried away. I turned to Terry. And you cheeky girl, why don't you check on Amanda? Yes, master. She stood up and left me with my slave sisters. Come along. I turned to Alice and Marie. I want to get to know my slave girls better. Now I'm going to play with your sister. Prepare me for her. She looked at me with something akin to fear in her eyes. But I am white, master. Your top is at my disposal. You can start with your hands. Yes, master, she said quietly. I sighed with pleasure. Thank you, master, she said quietly. You could hear the impatience in her voice. I took my time playing with her. Slowly, Kajira, Alice. Just keep me ready. Yes, sir, she replied. Marie, do you know what the she-sleen position is? Yes, sir. Assume it. She understood and took an appropriate stance. While I was training with her sister, Alice made sure I was more than ready. Marie, Nadu. She stood up and saw me gesture to the seat beside me. I gently turned her to face her sister. Thank you, sister. Thank you, Alice, she said quietly. Come closer, I told her. She moved closer. I brought my mouth close to her ear. Have you seen her do this before, sweet slave? No, sir. She's talented. Looks like it, master. Are you as talented as that slave? I teased. I think so, master. Help her. Yes, sir. Thank you. Erica chose this time to appear with silks in her hands. She had already wrapped the black scarf around her collar. She grinned as she bent down and threaded the red scarf through Marie's collar. She then walked around the girls and carefully threaded the white scarf through Alice's scarf. Don't forget about this, slave master. That's impossible. Your turn will come soon. She jumped up and walked across the room to give Denise her scarf. Marie took matters into her own hands. She was not as talented as her sister, but I appreciated her efforts. Terry walked in and stood next to me. They keep her in one of the tents, where some of the gentlemen and even some of their slave girls pay to dance with her. Does she look upset? I asked. She doesn't seem to mind. Her hands are very quiet, but she doesn't seem to resist or complain. She dances beautifully. If I had to guess, I'd think she likes being the center of so much attention. The first competition should be soon, I told her. We'll see what we can do afterward. I turned back to the sisters, who were minding their own wonderful business. That's enough, slave girls. Otherwise, the master will come soon. Terry hugged me as she watched her sister's performance. Stop, Kajira, he said. Alice said, Thank you, master. Alice has prepared a master for Kajira Marie. She's Slin Kajira, I barked at Mari. Terry parked on the other side of me and hugged me. It'll soon be me, won't it, master? Push Terry away like this. I was in paradise. I reached out. Sula, Marie. She took her time answering, seemed a little dazed, but still took the correct stance. I watched as Terry stood up and began to pull the two flagpoles together, stretching material between them, creating a visual barrier from the door. She came back, glaring at me. She's too noisy, bound to attract attention. Calm her down, Kajira. I heard a bell ring and turned to see the maid Fiona enter the room, sidestepping the makeshift barrier. The dance competition will begin in 5 minutes. She stood still for a moment, letting her eyes adjust to the dim light. Then she walked over and stood next to me. So this is where the real party is, she said quietly. Wow. I stared at her, slowing my movements. Stand here. I pointed beside me. She obeyed without hesitation. You can tell me no, I told her softly. Yes, she smiled devilishly. Kiss me, I said to the maid, Fiona. She leaned over and kissed me. Unfortunately for me, I also had to cut some of this text here because of YouTube, so once again I will remind you about the free trial of all stories, including this one, on our Patreon. Fiona grinned. I'll be back later. She started to turn away. Oh yes, your girl dances with anyone with 20 gold pieces, sometimes with 2 or 3 at once. More than I can say for this crowd. She leaned over and gave me a quick kiss. Leave something to help. She walked away. Alice stood up and kissed me. That was really strong. I understand. And I will stay within your boundaries if you make them clear. Thank you. No thanks, teacher. Coming to an understanding was nice, but it wasn't getting any cleaner, and our time was running out. Kajira Teri, please get Mari cleaned up. The competition is coming up. Of course, master. My pleasure. How are you, Kajira? Her eyes widened, searching for me. Alice used Marie's own outfit to wipe the poor girl's scruffy face. God, that was incredible. The contest starts soon. Will you be okay? She closed her eyes. After Erica, there was Amanda. I never seemed to get a response from Marie, who recoiled from me again. I grabbed Terry and pulled her away. She was strong and clung on. Alice giggled as she looked at us. That's enough, Terry. When did you get so wild? She pulled out of my arms and turned around, jumping into my arms. Master, what about me? She pleaded. I hugged her tightly. You're my special girl, Kajira. I will only be with you when Mandy is with us. The other slave girls are just for fun and just for tonight. You are more than that, do you understand? She put her arms around me. I understand, but you wait until that collar comes off. I'm going to get my revenge. Master. I set it on the ground. Come on. We're going to be late for the pageant. Who will dance for us? She grinned. That's not really fair, is it? Marie's a professional. How can anyone compete with her? We walked toward the main hall where the dancers were lining up with Michelle. So no one is going to try it? I will. But don't laugh. And Erica has something special in mind. She leaned over to me and gave me a hug. Wish me luck. I turned around and almost fell on top of Marie. She hugged me tightly. What do I get if I win, Master? How about a weekend at my house, with you, Amanda and Terry on my leash? She grinned. Sounds like I need an incentive. She gave me a quick smack. I've been practicing for this, Master. Choreographing and everything. There will be no one but us tonight. I dance for you, Master, and only for you, she whispered, and ran off to the competition. Only 6 girls decided to enter the contest, and 3 of them were in my briefcase. None of the men got up on stage, and I can't say I blame them for that. Of the 3 women I didn't own, one was Amanda. The other 2 were Tasha and Penny. This should be good. Terry was right. It wasn't fair. Don't get me wrong, all the girls were beautiful. Erica got creative, they tied her to a pole, and she put on the coolest show I've seen in the last 100 years. Obviously, she's been practicing. Home field advantage. But then Marie came on stage. She was a good woman, beautiful and graceful. Her turns were poetry, the curve of her neck, the extension of her arms, and the way she held her hands. After a minute, there was silence in the house. She managed to reach down and hold her dress in place. Her dance told a story that felt desperate and fearful. She tried to free herself from her imaginary bonds by pulling her hands away from the pole she was tied to. Her struggle alone was mesmerizing. Once free, she looked around and then broke free, running away from her captors. She moved, stopped, remaining perfectly still, then changed direction. But her flight was fruitless. She struggled to free herself, but she was grabbed again and thrown to the ground. I heard someone in the audience sigh. The kidnappers abused her, then let her escape for a moment, then grabbed her again. Her movements were so real you could almost feel her dancing. She had been silent before, only occasionally wheezing and gasping, but now she let out her words. As she whispered, "No, please, no," her whole body tensed. Suddenly she cried out so loudly that she could have woken the dead. "Stop it, somebody," I heard Fran's anguished voice nearby. The audience was definitely getting turned on. After this scene was over, she was dragged by her hands to a pole and tied in place. She could be seen sobbing. Then she stood up abruptly, smiled and curtsied sweetly. The place blew up. Penny took 2nd place and Erica took 3rd place. A few minutes after it was over, my dancer ran up to me and put her arms around my neck. "Is the master satisfied?" "Unbelievable," was all I could say. After that, we were encircled and I lost sight of her in the crowd of her admirers. I bought it for 380 gold pieces. I would have paid $1,000 just for the show. You know what I mean? Not exactly fair, is it? Terry stood next to me and looked at Marie, surrounded by men and women. I pulled her to me. "I liked your dance." She jabbed a finger at me. No pathetic compliments. "Behave yourself, Kajira," I reminded her. "I think we'll be talking about this for a long time," I admitted. "Why don't we find Raoul? I think he'll be more inclined to trade after this show," she said, reminding me of my original intentions. We found him pretty easily. My wife was standing next to him. He lost his mask. Can't say I blamed him. John was with him, drinking something out of a big cup. So, what do you think of Marie? I remarked carelessly. The best thing I've ever seen, he readily admitted. It's better than anything else. John seconded his words. Would you like to own her, both her and her sister Alice, in exchange for a small barbarian slave girl? I saw him hesitate and look at John, who was obviously pondering the question as well. Think about it. You already own the prettiest girl here, and now you can also have this walking dream, I told them. Raoul grinned. You make it sound tempting. When you get tired of her, you can trade her for any woman in the house and still keep Alice, I said. I saw John frown. Nice way to get Greg in trouble. I'm not sure I'd like that. Then trade them as a couple, I suggested. If you want, I can offer you Denise. John seemed to like the idea, but Raoul's face darkened. It might interfere with my style, he muttered. I doubt it. Have a talk with her. She's feeling rather exuberant right now. Maybe you'll see a new side of her that you'll really like. He looked back and forth at Marie, and then at Alice. Give us a second, okay? Sure, I told him, as he and John stepped aside a bit, discussing the deal. I knelt down in front of Amanda. What's up, babe? She smiled sadly. Tiresome. They seem to enjoy making me look like a puppet for show. No one's gone too far, have they? I asked. Terry was beside her, wrapping her arms around her. No, they're not bad, really. But I feel like a ripe cantaloupe. I've hardly seen you, though, have I? Terry rose to my defense. We're watching you all the time. All those servant girls are reporting everything that's going on every few minutes. I've been coming in and checking on you, and so has Jack. We're not going to let anything bad happen. She grinned. I thought those young girls were a little too curious. I'll get you back, Amanda, no matter what it costs me. The men approached, and this time it was John who spoke. Give us another half hour with her, and then we'll trade her for Marie, Alice, and Terry. Do it, Terry said. Come on, guys. Listen, Raoul, you're going to be a hero to your wife. You traded up to get her back. Denise, Marie, and Alice. I knew I had them, but Terry couldn't leave them alone. And me until the next contest, she offered. Starting now. Done, Raoul said. Hey, wait a minute. You can't peddle yourself, Terry, I reminded her. She slid into my arms. Please, Jack, it'll be better this way. She won't be alone anymore, and you'll have us both back in less than an hour. Against my better judgment, I agreed, glancing at the clock in the kitchen. It was already 20 minutes after midnight. We'll make the exchange at 10 o'clock? I asked. All right, Raoul nodded. I nudged Terry toward Amanda. I'll see you then. I gathered Marie, Kayla, and Erica and led them back to the study. I didn't see Denise or Alice around, and of course they were with Troy. I led my trio to the corner. I didn't know whether to break the news of the trade to Marie now or at the last minute. I realized I had to tell Troy. Kayla, you and Erica wait here. Marie, you come with me. The girls obeyed, of course, and I moved over to Troy. Troy, we need to talk, I told him. He reached out and comforted Denise. I made a trade. He smiled mischievously. I was afraid you might. After our dancer's little performance, I had a few suggestions. I've traded Terry until the next competition, and in about 25 minutes we'll trade these 3 for Amanda. Raoul wants his wife back. I added the last one for Denise's sake. Troy laughed. I can't blame him. Have you been with the Hellcat yet? I grinned. Yeah, but not enough. I guess that's what breaks are. Marie was visibly disappointed. But I won for you, Master, she said sadly. Yes, that's right. And you were absolutely marvelous. People will be talking about your dance for years to come. The award is still up for grabs, but I promised my wife I'd do everything I could to get it back. She's being traded like a sack of potatoes. The only one they're willing to trade her for is you. I pulled her to me, willing to go on a white lie to spare her feelings. It was that damned dance. I could have traded you right away if it had only been John. But Raoul insisted on Denise, and I thought it was bad form to separate a couple like you and your sister. Alice stood up and walked over to me, wrapping her arms around me. I understand. That's sweet. Who else here is willing to trade those 2 to get their wife back? I squeezed her in a hug. Holding my sisters in my arms, I almost regretted the deal. Almost. Raoul would have bought. We planned to buy each other's wives, but who knew Amanda would go for that much? Denise laughed. Oh, pretty much everyone, that's who. There were already rumors that you were going to try to buy her out. We couldn't let that happen. Troy spoke up. Time is running out. I'll trade Denise for Marie. I haven't even been with her for 2 minutes. I kissed Marie. Go to your master. Treat him well. I hugged her tightly. If I wasn't married and making promises, believe me, I wouldn't trade a moment with you for a lifetime with these others. Yes, master, thank you, she said quietly. Then she kissed me, after which she turned away. I returned with Denise to my corner, nestled between Kayla and Erica. In a few minutes, we're changing Denise and sisters to Amanda and Terry, slave girls. So let's give your sister a proper farewell. And then, it will be time for Kayla and Erica to get master's attention, Kayla said. Lots of attention, I assured her. I leaned back in my chair. Let's savor this moment. My thoughts kept returning to the reality of losing my sweet little Pixie. Obey, Pixie, I growled, and Denise stretched her arms out in front of her. Something about her irritated me, and I ordered my slave girls to do something to her. I leaned over and whispered to her, I'll stop them if you want me to. No, master. I didn't need to hear her twice. She looked so tiny and fragile and helpless. Are you okay? I asked. Erica snapped back. Don't ask her that. I smiled. Erica had her own views on how a slave girl should be treated. Hopefully, she would remember that later. If not, I would remind her. I took her advice. I also cut part of the scene here, due to YouTube, so I apologize in advance, and once again, remind you of the full stories on our Patreon. You're amazing, Kajira. Will the master miss his lonely slave? She asked wistfully. Before I could answer, Beth, my slave maid, burst into the room. Trouble with Amanda, she called out to me. I jumped to my feet, sending my slave girls to rest, and rushed out. Beth was at my side. At the tents, I heard her say lavender several times. Fuck it. Damn that Raoul. I expected more from him. The rest of the party was oblivious to what was happening, immersed in their own little world. I ran into the backyard, knocking people out of the way, and Fiona pointed me toward one of the tents. I rushed inside and took in the whole scene at a glance. Raoul was lying on the ground, his nose and lip bleeding. John sat next to Terry, one hand covering her mouth. She struggled against him. He looked up, and I could see the fear on his face. In the middle of the room was Amanda. Greg stood next to her, covering her mouth with his big, ugly mitt. Shut up, he growled. He turned toward me, just as my foot reached his head. I kicked as hard as I could, and his head snapped back, his eyes rolled back, and he collapsed next to Amanda, unconscious. It wasn't enough. Jack, listen to me, Jack, it's over. Jack, stop. Someone repeated my name, tugging on my arm. She leaned toward me. Jack, look at me. It was Michelle. Let go, I growled through clenched teeth. Erica stepped into my vision, tugging my arms. Master, she said. She rested her head on his legs, looking down at me. Master, that's enough. It's over. She reached up to my face, bringing her hand closer to mine. It's over. She looked nervous, her hands trembling. Her eyes were moist. She kissed me. The bubble burst, and I was flooded by the cacophony around me. I looked up and saw a multitude of anxious faces. Darius was kneeling nearby, watching me warily. I turned and saw Michelle still clinging to my arm. Stop this. Take care of Amanda, Jack, she said softly. I sank back on my heels again. Greg still hadn't moved. He didn't, Darius replied. He's breathing. We shouldn't move him until he comes to his senses. What the hell did you do to him? Amanda was in the far corner of the tent, along with Denise and Raoul. They were both examining it, looking at me, their faces clearly concerned. I stood up, my legs trembling, and found myself between Terry and Erica, their arms around my waist, each gripping my hand tightly. Looking around, I saw Beth inside the tent, huddled in the corner, with Dale and Troy blocking the entrance, keeping everyone out. It looked like we had quite an audience outside. Man, that was gonna be gossip for all eternity. I was stunned. My heart was beating like crazy. My legs were ready to give out at any moment, and I was afraid I might fall. My arms hurt. Very badly. Why do my hands hurt? Terry reached up to my face, forcing me to look at her. Are you okay now? You had us worried. You were so angry. You scared me to death. I looked at her and saw that her eyes were moist. She slapped me with her little fist. Don't ever do that again, she said furiously and hit me again. Erica reached out and pulled Terry against my chest. Her arms wrapped around me, and I hugged her. Erica shook her head. Please tell me it's okay now. I'm fine, okay? Stop asking. What's the big deal? He did. Greg. Yeah, sure. But why Dale or Troy? Dale or Troy? What the hell? I looked up at Dale and saw that he was starting to feel sore. What's wrong? They led me over to one of the 2 chairs where I sat down. Finally, I could realize everything. Alice was already in the tent, and she and Michelle were turning Greg over onto his back. He suddenly bent over and vomited profusely, catching Michelle's shiny shoes in the process. Terry massaged my shoulder, and Erica held my hand in hers. You're not going to go crazy on us again, are you? Darius can handle Greg. Alice used her white silk handkerchief to clean up Greg, who looked miserable. He was struggling to sit up, and I could see that his hands were tied behind his back. Amanda, I whispered. Shh, I'm here, Jack. I turned my head, and she was at my back, her hand stroking my hair, soothing me. I'm sorry. I gasped and couldn't see because of the tears coming to my eyes. No, don't apologize. You got here on time. Nothing happened. You saved us. She leaned over me, wrapping her arms around my head. I should have been here. I shouldn't have left you. She leaned over and kissed my cheek. Shh, it's okay. I'm safe. I'm with you. I pulled her head to me and pressed my cheek against hers, trying to regain my composure. I felt her tears roll down my cheek, and I almost lost it all again. I took a few deep breaths. Does anyone want to tell me what happened? I pleaded. You really don't remember? Asked Terry, surprised. Not a big deal since I saw what Greg was doing, I told her. It took a few minutes before the whole story came out. In the meantime, the whole world had calmed down, and the party went back to their business, each trying to find out from the other what had really happened. I was surrounded by Erica, Terry, and Amanda, with Beth standing just a few feet away. The story was coming together drop by drop, the girls taking turns telling me what had really happened. Apparently, I went a little crazy threatening John, who immediately let Terry go, and then jumped Greg, tied his hands together, and started abusing him. Beth followed behind me and witnessed the whole thing. Dale was right behind her. He was wary when he saw us run past, but when he tried to stop me, I pounced on him, knocking him down with a blow of hay. Troy kept up, but didn't get into the tent until after Dale had fallen. He got too close, and according to them, I pushed him off hard enough for him to fall on Dale. At some point, John crawled under the back wall of the tent. I shifted my attention to Greg, but Beth intervened, grabbing my arm. I tried to pull it free, and she moved toward Greg, blocking my path to him before I could do any more damage. That's when I decided to tie his legs together. Erica and Michelle followed me with Darius, and they tried to calm me down, hoping I wouldn't fight them like I did with Dale and Troy. Darius was ready to step in if I did something stupid. They were right. Even half crazed with anger, I couldn't hit a woman, no matter how much I threatened, and the 2 of them calmed me down enough to check on Greg. I looked at Dale and Troy, who were still blocking the entrance and watching me warily. Sorry guys, looks like I messed up. Dale just shook his head. Yeah, that was kind of fucked up. My cheek hurts just awful. That's why you shouldn't mess with a warrior of Horus, Troy laughed. A few people chuckled, and that seemed to ease the tension. Beth was still standing nearby. I waved at her, and she stopped, pressing her thigh against my knee. I didn't hurt you, did I? She shook her head shyly. I knew you wouldn't hurt me, and you only hit men. She chuckled at her own observation, but I'm still sorry. Apology accepted. You made me scratch my knee. You may have to kiss it later. Where are Raoul and John? I asked. Raoul sat behind me and to the side, in another chair, and his wife kept her eyes on him. His daughter Sheila joined them. John has managed to escape. That's when I heard the whole story. Greg found out about the upcoming deal thanks to John's big mouth and insisted on buying one last dance with Amanda. He rented Sheila out to one of the guys inside to get her out of the way. Apparently, Troy and I were the only ones who didn't rent out their girls. Dancing with Amanda, Greg started doing total shit like he'd never done before. She tried to stop him and finally yelled out, "Lavender," her safe word. That's what Beth heard and came running to me. Wow, what a roller coaster of emotions, right? We have witnessed a world of wealth and debauchery in which power dynamics are as fluid as desire. The boundaries between master and slave, love and possession are blurred and intertwined, creating a complex picture of human nature. Denise, once a timid observer, has found her voice and perhaps her power. Her transformation is a testament to the intoxicating allure of this dangerous world. What about our mysterious protagonist? Is he a predator or a puppeteer caught in the web of his own creation? The dance between dominance and submission is a recurring theme. We have seen this in master-slave relationships, in power struggles between women, and even in the delicate relationships between men. This is a game of control where the stakes are high and the consequences unpredictable. But let's not forget about the darker undercurrents. Random cruelty, the objectification of women, and blurred boundaries of consent raise deep questions about morality and ethics. Are we simply spectators to a disturbing spectacle, or complicit in the world we are witnessing? As we come to the end of this chapter, the anticipation of what lies ahead is palpable. Will the power dynamics change? Will new alliances be formed? And what secrets will be revealed? Remember, this is only part of the whole story. For a deeper dive into this complex world, head over to our Patreon for exclusive access to the entire story.